Well, now it's working. Damn it, I forgot to unmute it. Sorry for everybody who didn't hear audio until this point on the recording. We're making data a function that returns an object here because the object needs to be different per instance of the component. And if that is unclear, Nathan heard the full explanation. So ask Nathan. Cool?
Basically, it just means that for any time you make a survey builder component, it's going to have its own title and its own list of questions. So that's why we're creating a unique data object here.
Yep, and that's just sometimes in Vue you're going to have to do that, and sometimes you don't, but in this case you do. For data, that is. Cool, okay. So yeah, we can kind of just start by like putting some of this on the screen with like, I don't know, a title or whatever that, if we're not worrying about it being editable, we can just start with a title, right? And in the mustachio brackets there, you can put the title, and it should just show up, right? It's pretty nice.
I had this error. I don't think
Okay.
So I'm still getting this, but I think on some main.
Yeah, so go back to app.vue so you can see in this says right there app.vue:8, and so here it's saying import hello world from /survey builder, and okay, /survey builder relative to app would mean it would be in the same folder as.
Okay.
Whereas what you mean is components /survey builder, right?
So import.
It doesn't actually matter what you call it there, but you
Okay.
can call it survey builder.
Okay.
What it's complaining about is that you did instead
this
of
would be
components
Gotcha.
/survey builder, right? It's relative in the same
Okay.
way that CD is on the terminal.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Right.
cool. So that works there for Hello World. Yeah, just to jump back over to the app file, this is what my change looks like there. I just deleted the image and changed all the instances of Hello World to Survey Builder.
Right here.
That's my app.view.
Oh, right here.
That's the one, yeah. And sorry, that's a little small for you, right? You could probably make it bigger. Yeah, I had removed the. Oh yeah, so you've got the image up here. Look at what I have here on line 3, right? That's how I'm using the thing that I import. Yeah. So if you call that survey builder, then you're also going to have to call it survey builder in the import and in the components declaration. Sorry you're late, Ed.
I'm sorry, I'm late too.
Anyway, we just started from scratch. There's linked to the calendar a Google Doc that has a data thing that I copied in, and basically we're just like getting to this point where we've got a survey builder component that we're working on, and we're starting from total scratch, just putting stuff on screen right now, and later we'll pull stuff out into smaller components and make them editable and build it like we would be building it.
Cool.
Yep. So then Hello World is how you're importing it here, and also there. So you want to change both of those to Survey Builder. So hit save on that. Okay, so it seems not to be giving you error messages anyway. Mm-hmm. So in your components, your Survey Builder, if you put, like I did in Survey Builder, an H1 with the title in it,
Mm-hmm.
that could very well show up on your screen. Also, look at how I typed it, right? I didn't actually have to type the crossing the bridge of death part because it's coming from the data object.
Okay.
So it's 2 curly brackets, and then inside whatever the name of
the title.
Yeah, whatever the piece of the key to that object is.
Okay.
Interesting. Yours isn't showing up. Close your script tag. No, so you've got an open script tag here, and no closed script tag down there. That could be something. No, that's not it. So if you go to app.vue again, let's just see.
While Cameron's figuring that out, the next step we can try to do is just to use a for loop to display all
so
of the question text
So this list of
That
components
works.
here needs to be called components.
Oh, because it's pulling from the
Because that's, yeah, you're telling it about its children components. I don't know if it matters, but you don't have a slash there. Will you put a slash there? Like a self-closing HTML tag. Okay, so that does matter.
Okay.
Yeah, everything in these templates needs to be closed or self-closing, right? So that's what we got to do there. Cool. That was also now on screen for a fair amount of time for people who were watching on the screencast. Yeah. So what did you say the next part was?
Displaying the question text.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to think about how we want this in terms of like HTML structure, but you can kind of do whatever you want there. I don't know. I figure like maybe each question can be a div or something.
I was going to be arguably more semantic and create a UL with LIs, since they're all
Yeah.
a
Okay.
series of questions.
They sure are. Do ULs. And then each one has an LI, and so from last week we remember that we've got this magic thing for Vue that helps us loop, and so we can do v4, right? So that's like for each element in something else, and whatever goes in this quotation mark here, it has to be like new name, which is being assigned to, so we can call it question, in, and then some expression that evaluates in the context of this component, and so for us it can be questions. Right? This is just the name we choose to use inside of the LI. This one has to actually correspond down here to something in data or computer properties or whatever else you might want to do. Got to close my LI, and then I should be able in here to just, for now, let's try question.text. And that didn't work because up here, I guess my UL, the template root requires exactly one element. You're going to deal with that all the time because Vue doesn't support fragments. So we just have to wrap this in something. I'm going to choose to wrap it in a div because divs are perfect for semantically meaningless elements that you're forced to add for technical reasons. That's exactly what they're for and for nothing else. So, cool, that works. Now maybe I will actually take the opportunity to put a little bit of style down here. The nice thing about styles for all of this, guy, is that for Vue components is that they can be scoped. If you scope your style, that means that class names you define inside of it will be transformed so that they're globally unique, and you don't need to worry about the cascade from cascading style sheets. If I do like, class, you can call it like questions, yes, or something. I don't know. You are welcome to use BEM or some other better version of stuff, but what did I call it? Question list? I don't know. I'm not always great with CSS. I just wanted to get the list style to be none. That's not even how you do it. How do I do list style none? Does it have to be
I
LIs?
think you need an S under the questions.
Questions list? Is it questions list? Nice. Okay, I promise I'm not a totally loser. Front-end dev. Okay, so this is a cool thing that ESLint is pointing out to us because it's really important. Elements in iteration expect to have a key that's bound per element. Let's talk about what that means. So basically, like how do you get to the point of fixing it is you add a vbind with a key, and you set it equal to something about the question, like, I don't know, some kind of ID that we haven't given a question yet, or text or whatever. So that's how you get to the fix, but let's talk about why it's a problem at all. Vue is trying to be efficient in changing the DOM, because the slowest thing you can do on a website is change the DOM. And so Vue, as React and all of these other frameworks do, in order to stay fast, it keeps track of what changes are being made and tries to do as little as possible. And so one of the big ones is reordering, right? Reordering can be fairly expensive if you have to go through the entire thing and like delete them and then create them again, right? That's the only way to guarantee that it's correct, unless you have some kind of identifier for each of the elements in a list, which is what this key is, right? The key is an identifier that lets Vue say, oh, okay, all of these are the same except for items 2 and 3 have switched, right? And I know because the keys have changed places, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't know if like everything had reordered because now there's a new thing in position 1 and it has to make them all over again, and so it's super slow. We have to have a key that makes some sort of sense. And the key has to be unique per item. So text is actually kind of a bad key here because it's possible somebody could choose to have 2 questions with the same text. Probably the right thing to do is to give it an ID in each of the questions, right? Which is what we'll do later on when we're letting people make new questions. We could, for now, we could go in here and put in a bunch of new IDs, and I don't know why all my stuff is indented wrong down there, but it's annoying. For now, I'm going to use text. One thing you will see people do sometimes is to wrap that guy in parentheses and say question and index, and then use an index for the key, which is valid if you're just silencing ESLint and you are never actually going to reorder things. But if you use the index, then it can't actually make any efficiency gains as far as reordering because the indexes will never change. Or rather, what you're saying is if you take the third element and add something in front of it, then the third element's key will change to 4. And so it has to do...
Have a 4.
Yeah, and so what it will notice is it'll drop down the level. It'll say, well, the children of this, even though the key is the same, number 4, the children of it have changed, so I have to completely re-render the whole thing. Right? And now you're doing DOM operations on an entire list, O of n if you're adding to the beginning, if that makes sense to you. And you don't get any wins, right? You want that to be something that stays with the question if the question's being moved around, as opposed to just an index. But the index is great if you know you're never going to move them around because they're like your domain categories or whatever. Then the index will just shut the thing up and prevent it from yelling at you. So yeah, this should be ID, but it isn't. Should be ID. Why can't I do proper HTML comments in here, Nathan? Templates can't do comments, I guess. That's weird. Why is it yelling at me? It seems like it wants to help me here.
Unexpected character attribute.
Yeah, okay. So you can't do comments there. Whatever.
You do it on the next line? No, it's not do it on the next line.
Well, okay. No comments instead of HTML attribute parts there.
That's
Or whatever. Yeah. And of course, we've also got this shorthand here where vbind actually isn't necessary. We can just use the colon key. You'll see people do that all over the place, so I'm going to be in the habit of it. But that's the translation there. It's binding it, which means basically like instead of being the value question.text, it's like evaluating that for each question, right? So that's how it keeps us honest.
You can do comments, just not inside of the tag.
Oh, is that actually maybe an HTML thing?
Do you have everything hooked up right in the app.vue file? You've got the survey builder there. Yep, there. Ooh. Name, change app. Nope, never mind. Components. Nope, never mind. I'm not giving you any useful information. Yeah, I don't know.
What's it look like, Pro?
Survey builder.
Survey Builder imported from Survey Builder, and you're using it here. It's got the same name there. That's all good. So in Survey Builder, you are exporting something with data, and that's good. What's the console say? Error. That's not useful.
Thanks, console. Looks like you're missing a slash there after that li. I don't know.
Oh, that could be it. But it isn't. Survey Builder.
Did you put it in a div?
It is in a div.
Yeah, okay.
You need question singular, not questions that text.
Yeah.
The same thing.
But that's not
And then
being the problem.
question text, questions or questions list.
Oh, so that should be a period, a dot right there, which
UL
could actually be part of that. Could
Did you give the UL? Did you do the styling yet?
okay. So that's the thing is, so you were given it something. Oh wait, well that's weird. Okay, so that's a colon. That's a dot.
I just
yeah.
wasn't.
You shouldn't have to refresh there, except for if you do something where the Vue parser blows up, right? Like it didn't understand how to evaluate question hyphen text because that was reading in JavaScript as question minus text, and then it was going like, oh my god, questions and minuses, you can't do them. And so then when you fixed it, you needed to refresh, just because you had broken it in a way that like didn't have an app to change. You know, it wasn't able to mount it even.
Thank you. I'll look it up.
Yeah, we deleted there was an image up here that we deleted in app. Cool. So there's text, right? Can also do some options under there, right? Maybe the text here should actually be a label. If we're gonna do a nice little something that has I don't know what, like, because it's kind of a form, quote unquote, right? If we're gonna present it like this.
Looks like you got your comments in there good.
Yeah, I just can't put it inside of the LI,
Sure.
right? It has to go after there, but yeah. Yep, so there's a label, and then let's do a series of, well, here's the question, right? Is it radio buttons? Is it checkboxes, or is it just a text area? Right? So that's like, okay, now what are we going to do here? We could just start writing a bunch of ifs inside of our template here. And we could do all of these complicated comparisons of basically type, whether it's equal to options pick one, or options pick any number, or short answer. Right? We could copy and paste that double equals thing all over the place. But instead of littering our template with a bunch of complicated, even if they're not super complicated, things like that, what we're actually going to do is we're going to use a computed property. So underneath data, I'm going to add a comma, which is important to add that comma, and then I'm going to put in an object of computed properties. Right, and so we talked about these last week, but just to go over it again, computed properties are basically saved calculations, right? It's stuff that can be calculated from your data, so you don't want to store it separately. I'm sorry, do I mean a computed property for this?
Mhm.
Or do I mean a method?
You'll need a method because you'll be taking out a program.
Yeah, because it's per question.
Yeah,
But it would be a computed property of the question component.
but you're
Like
gonna be
when
passing
we
in
extract a
the
particular question
options of the
component.
question, right, and or the type of the question.
Yeah, I just mean
So
like after we
computer properties can't
yeah.
accept the numbers. It needs to be.
Yeah, after we extract it into a smaller question component, then we'll be able to use a computed property. Is why I'm thinking that. Yeah, so it can't actually be a computed property because it is like which question, right? You can't cache a value for input type based on a single question if we've got multiple questions, right? The computed property here is on the level of the component, and there's only one property per component, right? Or one of property by each name per component. So instead we're going to do a method. We're just going to save it out as something like this and change it later. So methods, right? That's little bits of logic, right? And in here we can say like, I don't know, okay, so let's think about it, right? We've got these two where we've got lists, and so we want to show a list of each option, right? And something about them changes whether it's radio or checkbox. And then we've got this one where options is null, and we don't want to show a list at all, right? There's no options to iterate through, and instead we want to add one text area, right? So that seems like the higher level distinction, right? In order to have the question of radio box or radio button or checkbox, you have to first have the options on the screen. Sometimes we don't do that, so let's do the distinction between whether or not there are actually options on the screen. And I'm going to call that has options. And has options will get a question passed in. And then I'm going to say question dot. I'm going to switch on the type here, even though we could switch on the options, just because what if it's like an empty array because somebody's in the process of editing this, right? The thing the user changes is the type, even though right now we actually could we could say, anyway, okay, question type equals with 3 equals short answer, and I'm returning the opposite of that, so I guess I could use not equals. That's how you do it in JavaScript. That makes sense? I mean, is that actually right? I'm not entirely confident that it is, but I think it is right. A question has options if its type is something other than short answer. Right?
Yeah, question has options.
Cool. Cool. So over here we can say, let's see, what are we going to do? We're going to have a text area, the if has options question. Nope, it's text area if not v has options, but we can also just use an else. We'll change that later. And that's doing what we expected to do over here, right? It's showing a text area for the one of these, which is a short answer question. Right? Seem right to everybody?
I'm getting it didn't like my methods method.
Okay, so the methods is an object,
Methods object.
and then has options is a method.
Okay, has objects. It didn't like my has question. It's just there's so much lint. Can't even understand. Or maybe not enough lint. I don't know what the terminology is there, but
Let me see. Okay, what's going on here? Well, what does it say? The unexpected token semicolon. Yep, that's exactly right.
before the method section.
Before the methods section.
so much.
It's this comma right here.
Boom. Commas.
Yeah, it's confusingly indented, but that's something that you ought to be able to fix with an automatic formatter. For some reason, it's not working super well here. Prettify doesn't do anything. But that comma, that's one that you're gonna forget over and over, and it'll never tell you you forgot a comma. It'll always tell you
Still
something else.
doesn't like it.
Huh. Do you have
It's
the right
pointing
number
at
of
the S in methods.
Do you have the right number of curly braces? I have one curly brace here which ends this data object here. Right? Or I've got one that ends the return, right? So I think mine is.
I mean, that doesn't affect it.
Methods object should come right after your data.
Here, use your minus signs over here on the side. You see what I'm doing over here to trigger the folding? That's how you can see what the like. There's probably something where your parentheses are mismatched, and using the folding.
Is it returning in? You want it in the data section?
No.
Just
Oh, just after.
Yeah.
Oh, so the comma should be after this. No, the comma there. No,
That's not what
I think that's it. You still need that. Yeah, and delete that comma.
Wait, thank you.
You got it? Cool. So now we got this first level switch. Whether or not there's options will show a text area, and then we can do something like a list of inputs. If I do a VF here, it's going to be on the inside of the for, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that. What do I want to do instead? I want to drop it. Is this where a field set is a good idea, or is that semantically bad? So I want to have a list of inputs otherwise, right? And the weird thing is that if I do v else on the input here like this, so we could do it like this. Let's
span or something. We could do like a span VX and then do
yeah. So I'll talk about why this is a bad idea, but let's first get it on the screen. v4 question dot options. And for now, that can just be, why is that not doing it? Oh, probably because it's, oh, option in question, yeah, that's option in question dot options. Cool. So that almost looks right if we were not dealing with text inputs, but instead, you know, radio inputs or whatever. So we can do type equals, and now all of a sudden my formatting is going to suck. Option dot, or whatever. No, we'll do some method we're going to come up with, but for now I'm going to call it radio. Right. Well, so okay. So aside from the fact that we also are going to want to have the label for these options, so we're definitely going to want to nest it. The one thing I want to mention right here about doing the VLs here and the V4 here isn't actually applicable. So shut up, Cameron. Shut up, Cameron. We need a label and an input. So instead of doing the VLs here and the V4 there, instead I'm going to actually do a div. Yay, more divs. So this div is going to be VLs and V4 option in question dot options, and then we can have the end of the div go there. And all of my formatting is messed up for some reason. Question mark. That's a dumb thing.
Power type.
Oh man, all my formatting is, all my indentation is bad, and I can't fix it because there's no prettier for these templates, which makes me sad. But this is also just giving you guys the time to look.
Where did you add a questions list class style?
On the URL?
No.
Oh,
Down in the style.
down in style.
section.
Same file.
It's
That's
You create
the deal.
Might
add
create.
first.
This looks so much better. Did you add more style?
Just for the images. You go,
But you have them ordered.
Oh, I
according
have
to-
not. So I guess it's in
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Of course, that's not here. How's it going for everybody?
I kind of looked down, and then when I looked back up, yours looked a lot prettier.
I added a CSS boilerplate.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you know, but that's a thing I did. You're welcome to find your own CSS boilerplate, or to use this one here that I used called primitive, which is the same one I used last time. Yeah, I can totally just Slack it. Well, yeah. Of course, now my Slack is being displayed. Code was do. That's the one I like.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and of course it's yelling at me again about the key. So, just put a key in. I just used
Does
add
it have to
import.
do with that space before input type or
You know, same way you would normally do.
This is a div. That div. Oh, you have that div vs v4, and then you have input vs v4, which is the same thing. You can get rid of that one.
Yeah, so we only need one input for each option, right?
So you can get rid of that part too. That's what it is, yeah. Okay, well, still looks different, but not in a bad way.
Yes, this is he. Yes.
Yes. There you go.
This is he.
Nice.
Cool. How you doing, Ed?
Okay. I was late, so that's fine.
Well, so anyway, I will just preview for everybody that we want this to change, right? Radio down here. So we want to make it a bound property, right? So we're going to use the colon there to bind it, and now everything breaks because radio is being evaluated as a variable. But if we call it something like input type, and we pass it the question, and then we implement that method, right? So there's your next task is to implement that method. Right, so we'll go down here and put it in the methods next to has options, right? Input type, also get a question. So, you know, something like that. I'll give you guys a chance to figure that out. And, it's not just going to be return radio, but I'll do that so that it doesn't look so bad on the screen right now. So shout when you got something. We can talk about it.
So is this where you're going to put whether or not it's a radio or not?
This is where you're going to put whether or not it's a radio or a checkbox. Yeah. It's not like hard logic, so I'm betting that everybody can do it. I'm just not, you know, I want to break people out of the copy and paste mindset.
does this also have syntax like return radio if, or I have to say if?
That's JavaScript, just JavaScript, not Ruby. Ruby has the suffix if, like modifier if, so you can do return something if da, and it's like instead of having to do if this and but JavaScript does not. Anyway, it's super obvious. So I'm betting.
Yeah, I get the logic. I'm just not familiar enough with like the Vue syntax
Oh, friend,
to do it quickly.
This is just JavaScript down here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're just going to do if question dot type equals options pick 1, then return radio. I should use curly braces for these if they're going to be multiple. And else if that's right. So I'm doing it with an else if instead of just an else because, I don't know, we know that there are other types, even if we promise never to do that, we know that there are other types, and I'd rather it blow up in a big way instead of the hard to debug way of all of a sudden they're just checkboxes where there shouldn't be checkboxes, right? At least this way it'll return undefined and then blow up in the whole thing. So what I mean. Also.
Just a situation where typing TypeScript would go.
Yeah, if we could use an enum type and have compile time guarantees that nothing was wrong there, that would be really nice.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
It absolutely
it's
is.
hard to imagine sometimes how the static types can help you rather than just.
Oh yeah. No, if you lean into the compiler like that and you say that this isn't just a string, but one of 3 particular strings, then yeah, that's definitely better. Up here, I'm just calling it in type, and I am using the colon there, which colon means bound, so it's evaluating instead of just being a string.
So if you don't put the colon, then
Yeah, if you didn't put the colon, then if we inspect that in the inspector, it's actually going to have a type equal to input, like input type, like the actual string here. So you got to use the colon. That means evaluate this in the context of this particular component, right?
this is a this.
Yes.
Anytime
It's shorthand
you're
for
using
B.
sort of like stuff based on your data or this component specifically, when you want to be using more dynamic content, you need to use the colon. And you can do that for
Could you-
literally any property
Yep.
within your
Yeah.
HTML.
Type equal to and then curly braces, curly braces.
Nope, that's React.
input type. No, but with this, what you use for like title and option.
Oh, you mean handlebars? Yeah, no, that only, so because this is the thing about Vue that is both great and not great is that this is actually just HTML. Like it happens, like all of this is valid HTML. Like you can have a colon in an HTML attribute name. It's actually valid HTML, and then Vue goes in and like understands what to do with it based on some some patterns of the names for this. Yeah, this is not like JSX and React where it's actually not HTML. It's actually JavaScript.
So if you want to put in a function within an HTML tag, that's when you need the colon.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
within an
it's-
HTML attribute or property.
Right.
Yeah. So everybody here? Feeling good about this? Cool. So that's kind of everything on the screen as far as our data is concerned, right? Like we did it. That's our data on the screen.
So just a quick clarifying question for myself.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer already, but so the only place you actually use the Vue syntax is in the template section of this document?
These Vue directives is what they're called.
Yes.
Yeah, they are special attributes for HTML, and the only place you put HTML is in the template.
Got
So yes.
Okay.
the view magic is a lot about these directives, and that exists in the template. Cool. So we got our stuff on the screen, but you've already kind of noticed, I bet, it's a little weird that we're dealing with like all of this switching back and forth or whatever in the context of a question, and we've got these methods down here that require you to pass this piece of information around, and you have to remember to do that. And anyway, if we start to add editing behavior, you can totally imagine now if every one of these, right, H1 needs to turn into something that's either an H1 or an input with a save button, and each one of these, you know, we're adding buttons all over the place, right? You start to want to spread out a little bit. You know, you start to want to have namespaces for this stuff and keep it all self-contained. So a big, the big win for component architectures like Vue and React is being able to break things out into components. And this is what you do. You know, you want to pull this out into a component. Let's call it survey question, since components have to have multiple word names for reasons. I'm going to go and add a new file. I'm going to call it survey question.vue. Survey question.vue is going to have a template, and it's going to have a script. And so I'm figuring that each of the questions can basically be one of these LIs. Well, it can be the contents of it. It should be the LI, but we'll replace that. I'll just copy this for now instead of cutting it. Copy that, put it in here. Boom, we're going to export the LI. And now all of a sudden I'm clear about where my freaking indentation went wrong. Or at least, no, hold on. That's because of, whatever. Copy and paste. It screws up your indentation and there's nothing to help you fix it. And it's annoying. Bad times.
Copy, don't cut.
I copied because I wanted it to be clear to you guys that we're not necessarily like, you know, that we're replacing the LI here, this outer component, with the thing that's going to be filled in with it, right? And so that's going to be a survey question. We still need to loop on this with for. We still need to have the key for this survey question, right? Because that's all in the context of this list. But I'm going to make it self-closing instead. I'm going to import it down here. You got to do import survey question from /survey question. Helps if you can type. We have to register it by saying our components include survey question. Right, and now nothing's showing up because we haven't actually sent the question. Import right here. Oh, and we're using, notice that these are curly braces because, so this is an ES6 thing. It's a shorthand for saying survey question : survey question. And it's basically how you teach it the name and give it the reference. And you do that at the same time. But they're curly braces. If they were just if it were an array, it wouldn't be able to know the name. Right. And so then up here, I'm going to say that we want to pass down a question. Right. And so the question, I'm just going to pass down the question. Right. I'm again using the colon. I'm binding this attribute. Now this is not an HTML attribute. This is an attribute or a property of my component. Right. So everybody got to this point? I don't want to leave this screen before you've seen it. We can come back to it, but feeling good about this particular structure in Survey Builder here?
Question right here. That makes sense.
Right, and so again, this is vbind, it's binding, but it's the colon because that's the shorthand for bind.
Before we change the key, the vbind didn't need the dot dot.
The colon?
Yeah.
No, it does need the colon, yeah. And this was all the same as when it was just the li, right? That's why I didn't cut. It's because that's the same as just the li, and now we're passing down question with this colon question, right? So now in survey question, we want to help it understand that this question is actually the question, right? Obviously we're not looping anymore, so I'm going to delete that. Right? We're looping on the outside component, and instead we're just using question in here. Now how do I know that there's a question coming? I have to register that I'm expecting a property, or a prop, right? So down here I'm saying props, and props includes, this is array, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm doing a type checked prop, but I'm not going to do that right now. So props, I'm expecting a question. And why doesn't that work, Nathan?
Because you don't have your has options and other methods defined.
Oh, yeah. Probably that's exactly right. What's my console say? It has options, it's not a function. Nice. Cool. Okay. So since obviously I'm using these has options and input type stuff, we got to copy all of that down too. So I'm just going to copy this entire methods block, trailing comment included. I will cut that this time because we're not using it up there. It's right there. Boom. Methods. That works. I had to refresh.
We are at 202.
Cool. .202 and 51 minutes in the recording too, because we started just a little late, but relatively on time.
Sweet.
Yep, so to extract a component, you copy its template, and you copy all of its relevant methods and whatever. You replace it in the old thing with a reference to the new component. All of the looping and keying and whatever, that still needs to be the same, and then instead of having all of that stuff inside of this component's children, you're just passing down a property question, right? Passing down the props that you need for that component. And so then in the new component, you're registering you've got those props, and then you can use them all the same inside of your new component, and that's how you extract. Yeah, and now of course all of these methods we're passing around, like we're passing references to the question that we don't actually need to pass because it's only one question, and if we're doing that, then it doesn't even need to be methods anymore, it can be computed. And all of these then just need this references, and if you do this dot question instead of the question that you're passing in, it should all work again, but why not? Because you don't use parentheses to talk to computed properties. Boom, it works. So that change there, where we're just not passing around all of these arguments that we need, is way nicer. And then computed properties are also cached. So that's the last little thing I'll do right there, and we can start from that again and refresh it, or refresher on it next time.